Hello, everyone, and welcome back for another round of Candid Conversations. Same date, different time. I'm excited to have you here. We've got a great guest with us today, who I'll introduce in just a moment here. But first, I want to say, like I said, hello, happy Thursday. My name is Nathan, and I work with the Lost and Found Association. So if you don't know who Lost and Found is, and you're just coming in to check this video out, love it. But we are an organization who focus on providing collegiate mental health through developing resiliency for students. So we want to work to give people skills that they can use to just handle the difficulties life throws at them. And we have had a lot of difficulties this year, especially recently too. So we're going to dive in here, and I'm going to introduce our guest because we wanted to have Vaney here. We wanted to have Vaney here a little earlier, or a little farther down the line in our Candid Conversations. We were going to start with just some more about like what Lost and Found is about, but with the way things have been in the world and the way things are going, we felt that it was super important to bring Vaney on board as soon as possible and have him talk because one, he's awesome. Two, he's passionate. He inspires me. He will inspire you. And I was just telling Vaney, I'm excited to see him because I haven't seen Vaney for a long while, it feels like. So Vaney is a culture consultant with Think 3D Solutions. He specializes in helping businesses create customized solutions that help them address some of the most pressing issues facing businesses today, like low attrition, low engagement, and generational gaps. And he's pretty much on any and every board you can think of in the city of Sioux Falls. So welcome, Vaney. Welcome to our virtual show.
Yes, thank you. Thank you for having me. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah. So, we talked a little bit yesterday, and like I said, I've gotten to know you over the last, it hasn't even been a year yet, Vaney. That's weird.
I know it does feel weird,
I mean, when I was working with Downtown Sioux Falls, Vaney's one of the board members there, and I met Vaney. You were the first person I met on that first block party in July.
Yep.
Block party season makes things go go a little slow. Like time seems longer when you throw a block party or 7.
For sure. especially like your first day or first week or whatever.
I was there 2 days, and they're like, "Hey, you want to do a block party?" Yeah, and I do. I'm ready. But yeah, so we had a chance to chat a little bit yesterday. But I'll let you just open the floor here with maybe just a little bit of background about who you are. I introduced you, but if there's other things that I missed that you want to share, I want everyone to get to know Vaney Hariri.
Yeah, well, I mean, this is, I just try to do as much as I can. My model is do as much as you could do well. And so I try to be active on various boards. I think I serve on 6 or 7 right now.
Good.
Yeah. I'm a musician as well. Have a live band that I do. I'm a coach. I've been coaching youth football for like 12 years. I'm into that. That's one of the things I'm really passionate about as well. And just all things community. And then, of course, the business, Think 3D, and just spreading culture and developing leaders. That's just what we're passionate about.
Yeah. And before we dive in, didn't you, you just had a big announcement yesterday, as I recall.
Yeah. So we also had Flyover Country, which is the new brand that we just dropped. And basically what that is, we wanted something like when I move around and I'm moving out through the country or whatever, I'm not the type that's going to be wearing a pheasant or anything like that. I try to rock the Buffalo because I'm from Buffalo, New York, and obviously I'm from here, so that's the way I could rep both.
Double whammy.
Yeah, it's a double whammy. It's 2-for-1 special. But I wanted something that had a little bit more swag to it, a little bit more flavor to it for folks than what we typically get. And I wanted to change the idea of what Flyover Country was and help people understand that we're here because we want to be here. Yeah. And so, the tagline is never be afraid to fly, but stay grounded, right? And so we're grounded. We have those Midwestern values, but we move around. We do amazing things as well. So we're going to tell stories of people in these communities that are doing amazing things. And, the apparel is really just a flag. And so, rep it, but it's about the people.
I love it. So if you don't know Vaney and you haven't gathered it yet, he's very passionate, very he gives back to his community in a multitude of ways, and was really a big factor in, I don't know the full background here, Vaney, but I feel like you were a big factor in working with folks to organize the peaceful protest on Sunday. You played a big part in that.
Yeah, myself, Julian Bowan was advising some of the young. So what we had a pair of young folks, or a group of them who wanted to put on an event. You know, they just wanted to do something because they felt it in their bones, and then it just kind of got big. And so once it gets to a certain size, you know, it becomes a different thing. And if you haven't done anything like that before, it's a little harder to manage. So actually, the interesting story about that is the SFPD reached out to me, and they wanted to make sure, because they didn't know who was putting on any of these events, and they wanted to make sure that they were properly permitted and all of that, so that they could move safely and that they could support it. So Julian reached out to them, we found them, and so they asked us to speak, and then we kind of helped advise them on how we can, you know, create a safe environment, which is what happened. We had a great event, a lot of people out there, and everybody was able to move through safely. And that's a testament to those young folks and being willing to do that.
And I want to say that was one of the most, like I said, just that you can, if you didn't get to engage with that or see anything with it, like the images out there, that was just a really powerful thing that happened on Sunday. And I guess it leads me into my first question, I guess, for you is like, what are your feelings on the current state of affairs in our country? Like, what are you feeling around this? What are you thinking?
You know, I have a lot of feelings about it, you know, anger, frustration, sadness, disappointment, encouragement, passion, all of those type of things. And I think that is what makes it so emotionally draining, is that there's so many feelings that I have, so many things that are coming out that way. And, you know, for me, though, out of all the things that I feel, I think it's the person's responsibility to try to grab onto and to hold onto the most useful of those feelings. And so the most useful of the feelings that I feel is encouragement, passion, drive, mission to do what it is that has to be done. And so even though sometimes I want to sit in disappointment, or I want to sit in anger, or I want to sit in frustration, those are the least useful things that I feel. And so I try to put those down for something that will do something.
Yeah. And Vaney, one thing you mentioned to me yesterday, as we were like just talking through, you said you wanted to kind of share some of the historical context of this, because I think it's fair that a lot of folks might not understand how deep and long lasting some of this is, and why this is such an important issue right now, and why for those who aren't connected or aware, I'm sure it just seems like it's coming out of nowhere. So.
Well, and that's the big trick, is that a lot of people do think it's coming out of nowhere. And that is a failure of this country to teach the context or the history, which is the context of what we're feeling right now. So if somebody looks and says, oh, man, they're mad right now, why are they so mad? They don't understand the context. We've been mad for a long time. You know, the interesting thing about it is we talk about privilege and a bunch of other stuff is, you know, I know a lot of people, a lot of my white friends in particular, that inherited businesses or inherited trust funds or anything like that. Obviously, that's not true for everybody. That's not true for a lot of people. But in the Black community, a lot of times the only thing that we inherit is trauma, right? The only thing that we inherit is anger or frustration, or, you know, that's what we inherit. You know, is that context is the reality that we have to be confronted with, you know, which is that we're not always going to be treated the same. And sometimes for no other reason than the color of our skin, we're going to face hardships and have limited opportunities based off of anybody that grew up in any environment that I grew up in, any young person was told two things, really. Number one, how you needed to behave around police, or that you needed to be careful about police. And two, that you had to be twice as good to get half as much. That's just, you had to be better. Like, being as good meant nothing. If you weren't the best person in the room by a lot, you likely were not going to get that opportunity.
Man, that's hard. That's like, I know we talked about it yesterday too, but you know, I know, like I'm happy to have you here, because I think it's, like I said, we want to be talking about this, but I know that I can't be the one to talk about it. I can't do it. That's just not
Right.
where I'm at. And so I said, when you say that, you have to be twice as good, be the best in the room. I was like, most of the time, Vaney, when you step into a room, you are the one that's the best in the room. And you surround yourself with great people too. So then all of a sudden it's this space of great people that are just around that. I think, gosh, I never thought about it the way you were talking about it, but it's like you had to push yourself so hard because that was what you that was your background. That's what you had. That's what you had learned, what you had to push for. And man, I just can't imagine what kind of a weight that is on your shoulders constantly.
Well, and the thing is that I was surrounded by love, and so because of that, I'm actually thankful to a certain degree, right? How it informed my attitude of how I have to approach things. I don't get down about a whole lot of things because that's not an option. Some people though don't have the environment of people around you that teaches you how to focus that or aim that. And so then it could be crushing. It could be so heavy on you to have that burden. Again, when somebody smacks their kid on the butt and says, go out there and win, as a white person, they just get to go win in whatever way they want to win. I don't have that luxury. Like, I have to win as a Black person, right? Like, I'm not a business owner. I'm a Black business owner. If I became president, I'm the Black president. If I came, that's always the context that shapes the lens in which I'm in. And so I have to be considerate about, am I providing opportunities for other Black people? Am I undoing some of the harms that were done for other Black people? There's an additional responsibility that comes with being a person of color trying to pursue the very same things that a white person might. And so that's not to say that white person that's trying to pursue what I'm trying to pursue is doing anything malicious against me, but that's just the nature of it. And that is the systemics behind racism and disparity in our country.
Yeah. And before I kind of move on here, I just want to give a quick shout out to anyone watching. First off, Thad, I see you commenting in the stream here. So good to see Thad. We love Thad Geed. But also, if you have questions too, or you have comments, things like that, post it in the video here, so because we can see those, we can share those, we can we can engage with those here too, because that's part of the magic of doing a live event is these candid conversations. We're talking about hard things. We're trying to be vulnerable and talking about ways that we can find resilience in the suck. How we can be have a strong sense of mental health. And frankly, if we're the ones making the script all the time, we're probably going to miss some of those things. So if you have questions or comments, please throw them in here. We'll do our best to engage with them as we're able to. But like I said, I wanted to give Thad a shout out. Thad is hopefully going to connect with us with Lost and Found in the future here. We like Thad. He's all right. And Vaney, something that you shared recently, man, it was so powerful on Facebook. It was on Sunday before the protest. I've watched it, gosh, like 3 or 4 times. But one of the things that you said, gosh, it really I talked about it yesterday and it really stuck out to me, and I can't get it out of my head. And I think that's a good thing. But it was you said you had a lot of friends saying like, I'm me, I'm not racist. And you said, I'm paraphrasing so you can fix what I'm saying, and talk about it more. But you said, at some point I don't care what you aren't. I care what you are. It doesn't matter what you aren't if you're not doing something to be more. And that one was just particularly impactful for me. And like I said, it was very much like it was an eye-opening moment for me. It was like, how many times have I said, this isn't me, and been more silent than I should have been when I need to be loud. I need to be vocal. I need to be using my position, my background, my privilege to do more. And so I said that was just something that was so impactful to me, what you said. And I just, like, how do we, I mean, how do we go about, what can we do to be actively involved in this, in your view?
Well, I think acknowledging that and going on the affirmative is, again, the value of what we can do as humans. The magic of it is that we can do, is that we can manifest, is that we can create. And so when people take the position where if I'm in this holding pattern and I just don't do anything wrong, then I'm doing something right. But that's not always the case, especially when something wrong is happening right in front of you. Because, that's what we need. Am I my brother's keeper, right? Am I here for each other? And so if I see these things happening, what is my responsibility as a person? And so when people say things like, I'm not racist or whatever, what I generally refer to it as, you may not be a racist, but you might as well be, right? Because if you're not racist, but I still have to lobby to you that I deserve equality, or I still have to convince you that there's a problem, or I have to encourage you, and I have to uplift you, and I have to educate you to get in the game to help deal with something that is so painfully obvious. And when I say painfully obvious, I mean like slavery, rape, pillaging, plundering, discrimination, yada, 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 the list goes on, that is happening in front of people's faces. When I have to lobby for that, you might as well be racist, right? Because you're still part of my problem. I tell people like this: if you go online right now and you search lynching, right, and you click images, there's a couple things you're going to see, right? You're going to see rope, structure, probably a tree, something like that. You're going to see somebody hanging from it, and you're going to see a crowd. And almost every single picture, you're going to see a crowd. The whole town used to be on it. People would bring their kids. Pastors were there. Teachers were there. Lawyers were there. Doctors were there. The sheriff was there. Everybody was there. They all were in on it, watching it. And so if you're not actively standing up and saying that this is wrong, you're in the crowd, right? You're in on it. And so you're an accomplice. And that's one of the things that people have to understand. And we can change these things relatively quickly. People can decide to be better today, right? They can decide today, I'm going to be better. And naturally, that's going to make the entire country, the entire world better today.
Yeah. And that's a powerful image. That was getting me. I saw something too the other day that it just was like the most duh moment that I have ever seen ever. Was the people, the comparison of like, if you're talking about, Black Lives Matter and you say all lives matter, that's like saying my house is on fire, but all houses matter. So spray water on my house too, even though it's not the one burning. And like, I was like, that was the most poignant visual for me. And I was like, gosh, if anyone can't understand that.
But see, that's the thing. They can. Mm-hmm. Everybody can understand it if you want to. You know what I mean? Like, and so if there was a mistake that was made when that hashtag was created, it was this. It wasn't long enough. Black Lives Matter as much, right? Because the reason why that's a question is because all the evidence you can point to suggests that they don't. And what I tell people is take race out of it, because people are like, oh, it's always about race. Take race out of it completely. Here's what I want you to do. I want you to follow the strands of disparity and unfairness. So follow the strands of disparity and unfairness in policing, in financial resources, in educational resources, in residential resources, transportation, access to clean and healthy food, you name it. Follow the strand of disparity, follow the strand of unfairness, and it will almost always lead you to people of color. That's why it's always about race, because it always has been.
Yeah.
Right. And so it's one of those things when somebody says all lives matter, then what are we arguing about? Mm-hmm. If all lives do matter, then what happened to George Floyd shouldn't happen. We should be on the same page. That's where people have to understand that protests and riots are symptoms, not the sickness. The sickness is that a person can die in front of our eyes and nothing happens. So if all lives matter, what are we talking about? Why are we here? Clearly, that's not the case. And so when people say it is dismissive of the experiences of people who are feeling this disparity, right? And it is a way of pulling yourself into a conversation that right now is about other people, because there's a lot of people out there that are comfortable with people of color having specific problems while simultaneously having an issue with them having specific solutions, right? You're okay with only Black people getting killed by a thing, but you're not okay about only Black people getting attention to keep them from being killed by that thing. And that is where it becomes malicious.
Yeah. Yeah, that's incredibly powerful. I guess something I have a question for you on is,
Yeah.
We talk about resilience. That's like our key word. Whenever I hear anyone say the word resilience about anything, I'm always like, ooh, what are they going to say? And so with this, like how have you seen communities of people of color who have remained resilient when all this stuff that you're talking about has been happening to them time and again, not just like in the last month or a day or a year. You're talking hundreds and hundreds of years here of like you said, you mentioned it right away, historical trauma. Like how do you feel, like what are some of the things that you feel have kept people strong, kept people resilient, kept people able to keep moving forward?
Well, I mean, for a lot of people, is their faith, and how they do that. If you talk to people who come from that ilk, the faith has always been strong. People in the middle of the field singing Negro spirituals. One day we'll make it and all of that. But at the same time, there's something that happens with that type of pain and that type of trauma, is that, and that is partly, when we talk about resilience, people talk about the ability to quickly recover. And the question is like, recover to what? And a lot of times the pain that you go to can help you develop the strength. What you have to fight against is having that strength become calloused, right? Because that's what it is. You punch a wall, your knuckles will get stronger, right? But they will be calloused as well. It's easy for you to be colder and to harden. And there's some of that I don't resent. I like being stronger. I like being tougher. I like being able to go through things, because in the business world or in my personal life or whatever, there's things that could break other people that won't faze me, because walking out of my house was a thing. You know what I mean? Like just hanging in the park was a thing. Somebody could lose their life. So understanding resilience is understanding that pain is part of a process. That doesn't mean you deserve it. It doesn't mean that it's fair. But it means that if you don't learn how to use your strength, if you don't learn how to use what you've learned from going through those experiences, that's when you become calloused. But if you keep it going, you develop passion. And quite honestly, we haven't had a choice. And so we got to keep going. You got to keep moving. You got to keep working every day. And I've benefited from that thought process. But we've arrived at a point in the year 2020 where we don't want to have to be resilient in the way that we've had to be resilient before, right? We don't want to have to fight through things the way we've had to before. People want to rest. They want to be able to just be successful without having to consider all of those things. And so when people are thinking about resiliency, it's about saying that there's something that I have to do. There's something that I have to push for. There's something that I have to accomplish. And that's how we can turn that trauma into a strength. And usually it has to do with what you could do for other people. And so there's a lot of people who went through trauma, but they had to be strong for their kids. And now we're at a place where what we're encouraging people of color to do, what we're encouraging everyone to do, is to be strong for yourself. Because a better you is better for everybody. And that's why we say, like, if you just take the time to be better, we could change the world right now, right? And if you're a better person, if you're more open, if you're more loving, if you're more vulnerable, if you're more willing to share, if you're more whatever, resiliency becomes a lot easier because you don't have to worry about everyone.
Yeah.
Right. And so that's really the message that I would share with people in terms of that piece of it.
Yeah.
You just got to keep pushing.
I think, I think you hit you said some things that I was, going to touch on too. And that was specifically with resilience, taking part of one of those. I mean, there's many pieces of resilience. One of those is, like you said, taking pain and being able to feel that, and then taking responsibility for that, and responsibility in the face of everything that's happening, and then turn that into healthy action, whether that means, if we talk in the realm of mental health, finding, someone to talk to, someone to connect with. If we're talking in terms of what, we're talking about here, finding ways to get involved, whether it's, protesting, whether it's giving to a cause you believe in, whether it's, even if it's something as small as, filling your social media, but also, and signing petitions, advocating, doing something, I think is part of that. And you, like I said, you pretty much said what I was gonna say, so thanks.
Oh, well. Two birds, one stone.
Gosh, I mean, I think this is a thought that I just had too, that it isn't really you probably have something to say about it, but I was just thinking, we're still in the midst of a global pandemic that hasn't gone away, and yet people are meeting and getting in large groups together and protesting, and they're putting themselves at risk on a multitude of levels. I think about that with, like, you're not just putting yourself at risk, from law enforcement or people who take the protests and use them, for whatever reason. And, some people might be for political gain, others it might be for rioting, things like that. So you've got that risk. And then on the other side of it, you still got a global pandemic that just by being with people, you're putting yourself at risk. Yet we see it across the country. We see it day in and day out today. I mean, what does that say to you?
Well, first of all, guess who's more likely to die from COVID?
People of color.
right. Another line of disparity, right? It's another thing that affects us more than everybody else for a whole host of reasons that we don't have to get into right now. But again, what choice do you have? If the person who's meant to protect us can take my life anyway, right? If having a counterfeit $20 bill that I could have gotten a million ways that is legitimate, right? That I could, if a broken tail light, if selling loose cigarettes, if selling CDs, if loitering or whatever could bring upon my death, I can't be scared of much. You know what I mean? Going about my day could get me killed. So, like, how can I not be out there doing what I got to do? But again, when people get frustrated, and that's why it's so frustrating hearing people be so frustrated about the riots, because it's like, why are they doing this? Why do I have to do it at all? Why do I have to do anything? But the question is, in terms of people out there doing whatever, here's what we know. Because there's people out there trying stuff at this point, because we know that asking hasn't worked, pleading hasn't worked, begging hasn't worked, demanding hasn't worked, praying hasn't worked, hoping hasn't worked, wishing hasn't worked, praying again hasn't worked, hoping again hasn't worked, sitting, standing, whatever, you name it, hasn't worked. People put up posts that show Martin Luther King on the bridge of Selma, and they say, this is a protest. And then they show people rioting, and they say, this is a crime. Without the context of saying 20 minutes after that picture was taken, they were getting their heads beat in by the police, right? When they say Martin Luther King wouldn't do it like that, no, he wouldn't, right? He did it a different way. And he got beaten, arrested 30 plus times, and was murdered, right? And so you have people out there that will say, we shouldn't pay people a living wage because it might de-incentivize them from wanting to work. But they can't understand how murdering our greatest leaders might de-incentivize us for choosing that particular methodology, right? That what people who are watching us go through pain would like for us to do is to sit and let people hit us in our face, call us names, pour thing on us. When you talk about the people who were sitting at the stand at Woolworths just so they could be served pie, the type of abuse that they endured, and they endured it. And people say, do that again. Do that again. You should do it like that. And it still doesn't work. And we're still here we are. So we have, again, those things are the symptom. They're not the sickness. But people have to be out there to advocate for themselves. And that's the frustrating part, is that we have to burn down cities to get people to see our pain, and people still go out of their way to not see it. Still go out of their way to make the conversation about something else. Mm-hmm. Man, if a black person knew that all they needed to do to be safe, to have people want to advocate for their safety, that people have to advocate for them to be whole, is be a target, we would try that. Right?
Man. Yeah, this is if anyone who's watching, I hope you rewatch this and watch it again, because Vaney, you're laying some really powerful things on anyone who's watching, myself included. Man, how you mentioned something with, you talked about COVID and its risk for the for people of color. Something you also mentioned, and it's a key realm for us, is mental health. You mentioned that to me yesterday. So if you could share a little bit about what mental health, what that looks like for people of color and accessing resources. Then also, I want to know what your thoughts are. How can we, as an organization focused on resilience and mental health, how can we do more? What can we do to our work to help make a difference?
Well, I think what you're doing right now helps, right? Because we got to figure out how to mainstream the conversation. Again, we're talking about people who have gone through such trauma that they are callous. They have to be strong. We have to present ourselves in such a way, right, that we can't be taken advantage of by people outside of our community and people from within our community. That makes it very difficult to get to a point where a person is willing to say, I have a mental health issue, especially globally. For a lot of people, it's still perceived as a weakness. And you live in a community where people take advantage of your weakness because of the environment that you're just naturally that you're in. So we have to mainstream that conversation. The other piece of it is we got to understand, again, the disparity. There are no poppy fields in the inner cities, but crack all day, right? Heroin, all those other type of things, right? There are no gun manufacturers in the inner cities, but you can find guns all over the place. So you can find guns, you can find drugs, but you can't find a counselor, right? So we have a situation where people who are not primarily resourced in these things that are killing them somehow find a way into the community. What doesn't seem to find a way into the community is mental health resources, right? It's financial resources, it's educational resources, right? People who are even right now, we're taking these young folks who are doing whatever in these protests, and if you breaking and doing different things, there's consequences to that. But even as we watch it, the people who are watching, they don't want just consequences, they want punishment, right? Punishment is about pain. It's about making someone feel some type of hurt. Consequences are about cause and effect, and generally are more effective, right? And so people are like, put them in jail. I would run them over with my car. You should shoot them if they block traffic. If they block traffic, would be a just cause to run people over. You hear people saying this type of stuff. But when we're taking these people, and keep in mind, we've arrested almost as many people in a couple days in these protests and riots as North Korea did in months, right? So let's just be clear that we're on par with that. But when we're taking these people, we're not suggesting that we get them counseling. We're not suggesting that we help them manage their trauma. We're not suggesting that we help them get over their distrust or feel in the disconnection from this country. No one's suggesting anything about their mental health or trying to get to the causation of what would make someone break something in their own community, which the large reason for that is because they don't think it's theirs. George Floyd got murdered in his neighborhood with his neighbors watching. What would ever make him think that that's his neighborhood? Right? And so we don't feel those connections to those things. And rather than people want to deal with the mental health of that, they just want to see people punished because they think it's, because it's wrong. And I'm not arguing that it is. I'm not out there breaking stuff because I don't see the value in that. I don't think there's any benefit to that. But when people make it seem like they don't understand, that one is difficult for me. And so when we talk about mental health, it's about saying when we imprison people so quickly for so long, we have such great opportunities to go different routes, a cheaper, more effective route to help people with their mental health, to put families back together, to make sure that young Black men and women have men in their lives, right, that are mentally healthy and have the capacity to actually be there for them versus fending for their lives in the streets.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is still, you said it already. There's still a stigma with it, and I think something you told me yesterday was just that stigma really is heavy within communities of color. With that, there's it makes you more vulnerable, and you'd already said your vulnerability is that people can take advantage of that.
They will take advantage of it.
Yeah, and that's a heavy thing to think about and to keep in mind. I think it's probably something a lot of us just don't even you take for granted that we right now you're being incredibly vulnerable right now with us. You are doing something that is like you said that's incredibly difficult, and I want you to know I appreciate it. Before we go in here, I just wanted to say that because I feel like we need to acknowledge that this is hard, especially when you're talking about when you're vulnerable, people are going to use it against you, and you're being very vulnerable. That's a whole level of courage that I hope everyone watching this can appreciate.
Well, that's the thing that we want to get through to people is that you have to develop the strength to be vulnerable, right? And that's really what happens. We tend to view it as a weakness. And we're seeing that right now, again, in this country. We are so proud of this John Wayne, tough guy, we're not scared of anybody, blah, 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 persona that we have as Americans, which is just absurd because we have people dying so much unnecessarily because they're not healthy. We have so many people in pain because they're not mentally healthy. We have so many people who feel lost and alone because we don't have the strength to reach out our hand to somebody that we don't understand. There's so much weakness in this country that we project this toughness when we are weak in so many ways. The ties that bind us are weak, right? And we have to acknowledge that if we want to be that, Camelot on the hill and all of that stuff that we talk about when we talk about American exceptionalism, we got to do the stuff. We got to do the stuff. It has to be for real. It has to be legitimate. And right now it's smoke and mirrors and people talk tough and that type of thing. And before we can have the strength to be vulnerable and say, I don't understand or let me help you. And that's what we have to get to. We have to get strong enough as a country, right? We have to get strong enough as a country that we could be vulnerable with each other and get back to the point where we can acknowledge that we need each other.
Yeah. So Vaney, I'd like to know what out there is giving you hope. What's giving you hope right now?
I tell you what, like for me, like there's a lot. This weekend, I was an emotional wreck, in terms of going through the different emotions. But I'll tell you, in this community, right, nationally, it's kind of a different thing. But in this community, we saw thousands of people here in Sioux Falls, South Dakota, saying that we're not going to have this here. We're going to stand up for this now so that this never happens here. We want justice for George Floyd, but there's a lot of George Floyds. And so we want to make sure that this never happens here. That's something that would not have happened. Me in my life, 5 years ago, if I was up there saying the things that I was saying with the passion that I was saying, I might have lost business. I've had more businesses call me than before. Okay, before the media would have spun those stories to make it so it was just the negativity. But I had news people call me at midnight to say, listen, we want you to be able to counter this story because we know your protest wasn't this one. We have police reach out and say, listen, we know these are two separate things. Every chance they got in front of the camera, they said, this was this one, that was that one. Those were two different things. That's something that wouldn't happen. I got 70-year-old white people stopping me in the street, say, what you said touched me and meant something. And I have other people saying my kids were there at 10 and 12 and they saw it and they were inspired by it. These are things that were not happening in Sioux Falls years ago. And so I'm passionate right now because I think it's changing. Businesses are hitting me up. What can we do about this? How can we be more diverse in our businesses? So I have so many things that inspire me, that make me feel good about what it is that we're doing. But I will tell you this, I don't put a whole lot of stock in hope. I put stock in activity. I put stock in the results. I mean, there's a lot of people who are well-intended who don't do anything to help anyone, right? And so this is about action. This is about what you're doing. This is about what you're contributing and how you're deciding to take control over your country. We've been asleep for a long time. Part of the only reason why this can happen is because there's no Avengers movies. There's no NFL. There's no NBA. There's no any of that stuff. And we're forced to look at it. And we have been asleep. The two biggest industries in the world is what you do for work and how you escape it. That's what we do. Most people are not in their lives. And this is one of the first times where this country has had to put their hands back on the wheel and say, this is our thing. And we know that there's gaps in leadership all throughout. And so people have to put their hands back on the wheel, take it off of autopilot, and make this country what you want to make it.
That's awesome. That's true. Yeah, there's nothing going on right now that we can distract ourselves with. And Vaney, I was up past midnight till they stopped the feed on Sunday night, and I saw you come on the news, and I said you came in the middle of the night, and I thought that was incredible for you and for them. That was
right.
I guess we're kind of nearing the end of this talk. I guess I think we could probably go for another 7 hours probably.
Yeah.
Probably no one wants that probably right now with that. Maybe not with me, but with you, I'm sure they do. But what? Gosh, that's a big question. But what actions do you want to see? Would you like to see? Like, what are things that we can be promoting? What are things that people watching can be doing to put, like I said, put words to action?
Right. I get this question a lot, and what I would say is first of all, if you have people of color in your life, get with them, see if they're passionate about anything and how you can facilitate that. But the first thing I would tell everybody to do is get in touch with your talents. Right? Do not bury your talents. Okay, they need to be multiplied. Do not be the person who buries their talents. And so whatever your talent is, okay, if you're an artist, do art that helps communicate it. Right? If you are a storyteller, tell stories to get people to notice that. If you're a person that has financial abilities, lend those dollars. If you're a person that's an orator, lend your voice. If you do it in your talents, because then it becomes real. Then it becomes connected to you. Then you can operate within your passions. I mean, I think it's disingenuous also, to be able to say, what do you want me to do? I don't know. I'm busy, whatever. Like sometimes it's about saying, what are you really passionate about? What fires you up? If it's young people, go get with some young people of color. Let's do all of that. So I would tell people, get in lockstep with your talents and what your passions are, and as best as you can, try to align what your gift will be with what your gift is. Mm-hmm. And that is where you get the most alignment, and that's where you're going to get the most return.
Awesome. By the way, we've had some great comments here. People, there's from Wendy Dooley, Becca Eisenhower, Shelley Gaddis, people who are watching and talking about change, and I think it's awesome. Lastly, I guess, do you have any resources that you want us to be aware of that we can share out with people, that we can say, hey, if you want to know more or you want to get involved, here's where you should go?
Yeah, listen, there's communities, there's things that are happening in people's communities already. I encourage them to look into all of those. 211 is a great resources to talk about the particular folks that you can go to if you want to affect a specific community. There's things like Establishing Sustainable Connections that's out there. There's South Dakota Voices for Peace that are out there. Leaders of Tomorrow program that we do, that we're passionate about, trying to produce 500 trained leaders by 2025 and into the future, so we could develop that leadership academy. Please look into that.
Pretty good things about that one.
Yeah, you were in that. So there's things out there, reach out. And the other thing too is, we're in this weird space right now where a lot of white people are trying to find the right way to help. And I think the best practice is always getting with people of color and communing with them and collaborating with them, because that's the best way to do it. But quite honestly, listen, this is your world. This is your country as well. You, just like you have a slice of the problems. So the things that happen in this community affect you. You also have a slice of the responsibility. So like, go out and do your thing how you see yourself doing it, you know, and you don't need permission from Black people to do that. Yeah. You know, obviously there's a thoughtful way to do it. There's a tasteful way to do it, but you don't need my permission to go out and do something, you know?
Yeah. And I, on a quick note here too, for a personal note for myself, is like, I've been seeing all this, and I'm just like, you know, I have two little girls, a 3-year-old and a 6-month-old, and I'm like, I want them to look back on this. I want them to see this stuff, and because it's going to be in the history books. We're gonna talk about a global pandemic, and we're gonna talk about this, and I want them to look back and be like, how is that a thing? Like, I want it to be so shockingly different for them that they look at us like there's no way this could have been really what it was. And I know that that's probably not, you know, yeah, I don't think we're going to be that far removed from it that they're going to be so shocked. But that's my goal. That's my hope. That's my my dream for this too. Is I hope we can. And I don't hope we will. We will do it. And like I said, hope's great, but we're gonna, you know, put words to action. We want to make this a place that, at least for me, myself personally, and I know so many others that have stepped up to the plate to say we want something different. So I want to thank you, Vaney, for all of the work you've done over the years, all the work you've done recently, for taking time to be with us. Folks, if you want to connect with Vaney, this is an easy way to do it, at Think 3D Solutions on Facebook, and I think on Instagram, right? Same tag?
Yeah.
So that's a good way to connect with them through social media. First off, Think 3D Solutions has a lot of, you know, Vaney is one of 3 that are over there right now, and they do awesome work. I'm blessed to be able to know Tamian and Dan. You know, it's an awesome group. So get connected with them. They're great. Please don't hesitate to reach out to us on social media. We are at Resilient Today on Instagram and Facebook. We're here. We're going to be doing these candid conversations on Thursdays moving forward. At least that's the plan. It might not be at this time. It might be a little later, but we're still figuring this out. This has become something that people have responded well to, and it, we initially thought maybe it was just going to be a little one-off, but I think it's here to stay. And I think these kind of talks are so important as we look at how we can be well together, how we can be mentally strong, how we can focus on building resilience, because it doesn't matter if you're a student, it doesn't matter if you're 5, it doesn't matter if you're 95, we all can learn how to be more resilient, and this is the space we're in right now to do it. So I want to say thank you again, Vaney. I think I don't want to keep throwing Thad's name out there, but he just said, Vaney has a heart bigger than his chest, insanely grateful, and his wisdom here in our flyover country community. And I think I say that because I think it's important for people to know that is true. That's who you are. And I'm so thankful that you spent some of your time and your passion with us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me. Appreciate you.
And like I said, if you're looking for support or resources, don't hesitate to reach out, and we'll be back next week. Have a great day.
Awesome. See you. Thank you.